Hey, good morning, guys. It's Micah from Sapulpa Times. Happy Friday. Hope that your week has been going well for you. We've got a lot to talk about today. We have some new events going on, and then there is a change coming to Sapulpa's 911 boundaries that have some folks kind of concerned about what might be happening regarding that. And I've got State Representative Mark Lawson coming to join us here in just a little bit. But first, let's start things off the right way. And it is, of course, Free Coffee Friday. And today's Free Coffee Friday is sponsored by Route 66 HVAC. If you don't know how this works, then what you do is you go down to CTS Coffee at 114 East Dewey, get yourself a free drip coffee or discounted specialty coffee. And each and every week it is sponsored by a different organization. And we thank, of course, Route 66 HVAC for sponsoring today's free coffee. Also, I am sitting in Sugar Llama's upstairs room right now, and they are doing a National Donut Day today. They are doing a BOGO deal, a buy one, get one deal. And so what the deal is you buy one 6-count, you get a 6-count of donuts for free. And I am leaving with 4 of those today. So I'm definitely taking advantage of that. But if you haven't been to Sugar Llamas, haven't had their donuts, you've been missing out. Hundreds of flavors to choose from. And so be sure to come down and do that. They're going to be doing that all day today for National Donut Day. So I do want to let everybody know that we are going to be taking questions and stuff in the chat today while we're having this conversation with Mark Lawson about what's happening with the 911 boundaries. And so if you have questions for Mark, be sure to put those in the chat and we will relay them to him for as long as we are live on the show. Before we get to Mark, though, we're going to kick it over to a brand new event that's going to be happening tomorrow. First time we're talking about it on the show. And I've got Lucy over at the Waypoint Lounge. So I'm going to bring her in real quick and let's talk with Lucy. Hey, Luce.
Hey! I am coming live from our beautiful new Waypoint Lounge beer garden that actually isn't even open yet.
But it will be open soon, I hope?
So okay. We open I say we, I don't work for Waypoint, but Waypoint Lounge will be opening their beer garden tomorrow evening from 5 to 10. This is a family-friendly area. They'll have lawn games and local vendors. You can come out and get some of the amazing Waypoint food. Their drink menu will be open and available to anyone that is here. So that'll be happening here tomorrow night.
Okay, and I did want to make sure that people understood this is supposed to be a family-friendly event, right? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, so it's family-friendly. Beer garden, it's BIER, which I don't know if that's a thing all the time.
I don't know. I learned that yesterday also when they gave us the name for it.
Yeah, so I don't know if that is like their way of saying like, hey, we're not only alcoholic beverages. But that's what they're calling this great outdoor area. As you see over here, they've got cute little fire pit. There's discussions of maybe more fire pits. I don't know. I can't confirm or deny that. And they've got their beautiful butterfly garden over here. And, you know, if it's too hot outside, you can take the party inside. But it's a great opportunity to have a, patio feel and be outside and enjoy your food and whatever beverage of choice.
Okay. And that'll be starting tomorrow, you said, at 5 o'clock. Is that right?
Yes, 5 to 10 p.m.
Okay. And I did see on the press release that they gave us yesterday that it is going to remain a family-friendly event up until, I think, 10 p.m. when they start the karaoke night, I think, inside. That was what they told us. So if you're looking for more information on that event, go check out sapulpatimes.com, and all the details for that are over there. And that's not all we've got going on. We've also got, I was picking up this visual aid here. We've got the business over breakfast that's happening, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our chamber is an awesome place to get connected. And every quarter they do a business over breakfast. So this quarter, they are doing a breakfast discussion over Google visibility, how to promote your business using Google and all the benefits to that. So if you've never been to a class about Google visibility, you are definitely missing out and you're missing the mark for your business. So come join the chamber on June 18th at 7:30 in the morning, where we will have breakfast over at Andy's Grill. So typically this is a paid event. Sometimes they have sponsors. This time they do not have a sponsor. So if you are a member of the chamber, this event will be $15. And if you are not a member of the chamber, this is a $20 event.
Okay, good deal. Did they lower that price? It seems like it used to be more expensive than that. That's good.
They did. So that's the whole reason they're moving around and going to different places. It used to be at the Oaks and the price was a little bit higher and things like that because of the food quality and just the Oaks pricing. So they're moving it around. They're getting out in the community, allowing other businesses to have the opportunity to cater this event and bring that price down a little bit.
Okay, awesome. And then one other update for you guys I want to make sure you know about. We've got the Rock Creek Music Festival that is happening tomorrow as well. We've talked about that on Wednesday's show, so you can go check out that show if you want more details on that. But there's been an update to that event now. We were told that the high school jazz band has been added to the lineup for that show. And so in addition to the King Cabbage Brass Band, that is kind of the main headlining event there, you're also going to get to go see the Sapulpa High School Jazz Band perform as well. So if you weren't already planning to attend that show, I really hope you do, because I think it's going to be a great performance by both of those acts. So, and I think that was it as far as the updates to the events and stuff. Did we have anything else?
That's all the updates we got. But don't forget, today we are celebrating Emmett at Martha's Corner at 11:30. We would love to see everyone there.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you down there, Emmett, and you, Lucy. And we'll have to do that right after we do our ribbon cutting, right?
Right. We'll run straight from the alley.
Thankfully, it's just right around the corner. So I think we'll be all right. Okay, Luz, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it very much. And we'll see you on Monday.
All right. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Okay, so that is that, and be sure to check out those updates to those events and stuff. Go back and rewatch the show if you need to. Okay, again, if you have questions for what we're about to talk about here, then be sure to leave them in the chat. We've got that open. We will relay those questions to Mark just as long as we are on the show. So I'm going to go ahead and take this time to introduce State Representative Mark Lawson. Hey, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Micah. How are you?
Good morning. I am doing well, and I really appreciate you coming to be a part of the show today. There's kind of this topic we've said before is kind of a convoluted topic. There's a lot around it, and so but I think there's a lot of folks who are kind of scratching their head about what all this really means. And so I thought, who better to talk to than the person who represents, the 40,000 people that might be affected by this. So basically what we're talking about here is the change to the 911 boundaries surrounding Sapulpa, actually all of Creek County. And that change, we do know that change is already coming. It goes into effect July 1st, if I'm not mistaken there, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But Mark, I was hoping, could you just kind of break down the history of what happened here and how we got to where we are today and what this means going forward?
Absolutely. And Micah, thank you for this opportunity. You're right. I think your assessment is right. It's got a lot of people scratching their heads. There are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. But there is an opportunity, in my opinion, to resolve this issue, to make sure that there's no disruption to anyone. But it is time. A lot of things are being talked about and said. A lot of people with a lot of questions. So I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with you today about it. And if I may, I'll spend maybe 10 minutes or so giving a little bit of the kind of historical breakdown. What happened when? What does that mean? But then also what can be done about it. Because as you said, I think people need to know. Certainly, these are the people that I'm elected to represent. Not all of them, mind you, but a vast majority of the 40,000 people in this affected area, specific to Sapulpa, are my constituents, and I just want them to know what I know and where they can go if they have questions, and let them know kind of what the game plan is. Micah, I will make available to you to further disseminate anything that I'm going to show or talk about today, just because there may be some people that log in later who have some questions, or they hear something that I said, they rewatch it, they want to look at it for themselves. I want to make it available. The first I have is a map. I'm not going to zoom in totally, but what you see here is Creek County. You see the gray shaded portion and then 4 colored regions. Most of what you and I are going to talk about today, Micah, is this orange region here, which is Sapulpa, the city of Sapulpa, and the immediate area surrounding it. But these are the current PSAPs. And when we say PSAP, that is the public safety answering point. So when you call 911, who answers that call? In the case of that orange region that I showed you, that accounts for 42,021 people according to 2020 census data. And I would say approximately 85% or greater of that is my house district. So these are my constituents. PSAP 911. You have an emergency, you call 911, who answers that phone? Depending on what your emergency is, someone is then transferred to respond to that emergency, police, fire, medical. Going back to the beginning of the year, I know that the city of Sapulpa and their council passed a resolution to reaffirm the existing boundaries for their PSAP region. And in this case, that PSAP area is the exact same as the fire run area for the Sapulpa Fire Department. That I think Sapulpa is unique in that I can't speak as intelligently to the other PSAP areas in the county, but for our purposes here today, that is the current fire run area for the Sapulpa Fire Department. To my knowledge, this has been in place for decades. It could be as far back as the late 80s, early 90s, perhaps before. That is a looming question that even I have not been able to discover an answer for. However, the Board of County Commissioners around the same time voted to authorize the sheriff to request changes to these PSAP boundaries. And those changes would essentially shrink all of the other existing PSAPs back to their respective corporate city limits. And then the Creek County Sheriff's Office, which operates the county PSAP, would then start to receive calls for all unincorporated areas of Creek County. The first thing I want to read is a letter from the State 911 Management Authority, who is ultimately the authority that would make the decision to make any changes to these boundaries. And this is a letter to the city of Sapulpa in response to the conflict of where the boundaries should be. And I'm just going to quote these. Again, I can make the full things available to them, but I'm going to take pieces out. This letter, it says, quote, absent evidence of a prior cooperative agreement with the greater political subdivision, Creek County, Sapulpa's actions lack support to maintain oversight of the contested and unincorporated area. It further goes on to state, however, PSAP jurisdictions may enter joint power or written cooperative agreements, which would authorize one PSAP to respond to areas within another's jurisdiction. However, absent said agreement, there would be no grounds for any PSAP to assume responsibility for responding to an area outside its territorial limits. It cites some state statute in this letter. And fast forward then, this letter again was January of 2024. Fast forward to May 2nd of this year when the State 911 Management Authority met, and they voted, not unanimously, mind you, but they did vote in a majority to change the PSAP boundaries to reflect the changes requested by the Sheriff's Office and the Board of County Commissioners. And that would take effect July 1st. So that has caused a series of other dominoes to fall that affect current city code and also revert us back to looking at state statute to how do we not disrupt service to citizens. I want to read first from state statute that is listed in the January 2024 letter from the State 911 Management Authority. It references Title 63, Section 2808 of state law, which is the Oklahoma Emergency Telephone Act. That section reads, and I quote, joint powers or written cooperative agreements for the implementation of a plan. So when it talks about the implementation of a plan, it means that jurisdiction, when you answer the call for 911, What is your plan to transfer those calls? Who is going to respond to those calls, etc.? So with these changes that are set to take effect July 1st, it does require a plan, an implementation of this plan for these new areas based on the vote that the State 911 Management Authority made on May 2nd. State law says, and I quote, "All public agencies in a single system may annually enter into a joint powers agreement or any other form of written cooperative agreement." Further states, quote, "Every public safety agency which is a participant in a system," in this case that new 911 system, "may respond and take action to any call, whether within or without the authorized territorial jurisdiction of the public safety agency." In my opinion, this would require, and if Sapulpa Fire Department were to become a participant in this system, it requires one of these joint cooperative agreements or written agreements that would allow them to respond outside of its authorized territorial jurisdiction, which is, again, referenced in this January letter from the 911 Management Authority. Further, I think the actions on May 2nd from the State 911 Management Authority have rendered a section of city code to be invalid. This is section 13-206, 207, and 208 of the Sapulpa Municipal Code. I'm going to start at section 208, which says the authority to answer calls. Quote, "The fire department of the city is hereby authorized to answer calls for outside fire run services within the area enclosed by the outside corporate limits of the city." That enclosed area is what is today the existing PSAP boundary and the existing fire run area for the Sapulpa Fire Department. Because of the action taken by the State 911 Management Authority on May 2nd of this year, the city no longer is authorized to answer those calls. So this whole section of the city code is rendered invalid, in my opinion, is superseded by the state's authority in the action of the 911 Management Authority. However, there are sections 206 and 207 of the same section of city code do authorize for contracts for the city, and this is supported by state law. But city code currently, these other sections, 206 reads, and I quote, "This is contracts authorized outside of city limits." And I am taking pieces of that. It's quite lengthy. I'm reading the highlighted parts. That's again why I want to make it available for people who want to read this later, but time is of the essence here, and I'm trying to be as concise as possible. It says, quote, "The city is hereby authorized and empowered to enter into contracts or agreements with political subdivisions of the state," in this case that would be Creek County, "for fire protection, fire prevention, and first responder rescue, resuscitation, first aid, and basic life support services outside the corporate limits of the city." The next section, section 207, which is contract terms, fees for service, states, end quote, "Any contract entered into by the city for outside fire run services shall provide for the payment by the political subdivision for annual contracts at rates and charges as set by the master fee schedule." So the city is still authorized to do that. It's my understanding that the council has taken action that allows city administration to extend such a contract so that we are not disrupting service. But because they no longer have the authority to answer the call, we need to revert back to what state law does allow. So here is what I think the solution is, and I want to be hopeful to constituents. But state law does allow for provisions for such contracts to be entered into. It is my understanding, and I want to be clear to this point, that when all of this was established some 30 or 40 years ago, the question has come up, why were these contracts not put in place? And Micah, I have not been able to find an answer to that. But that, that just reminds me of the quip, the best time to plant a tree is 40 years ago. The second best time is today. And so that's what I think we, as elected people who serve these folks that would be affected, it is our obligation to make decisions and govern today based on the information that we have, so that whoever is sitting in our positions 30, 40 years from now is not looking back on the decisions that we make today and saying, why didn't they do this the right way then? I want to read Title 11, Section 29, 106, number 6, and Title 11, 29, 1129-106. Title 11 is the section of state law that governs cities and towns. 1129-105 states municipalities and fire protection districts contracts. That is this section. It says, quote, a municipality may, number 6, provide fire protection for persons and property outside its corporate limits, provided that said fire protection has been authorized by the governing body of the municipality. Again, that's the city council. I read you the city code, which is authorizing the city to do that. That next section 106 of Title 11, this is contracts respecting fire protection. It reads, and I quote, any contract for fire protection entered into by the governing bodies of municipalities shall expressly stipulate the terms and conditions each party thereof is to cooperate for outside aid or mutual aid or making payment for such service. Governing bodies may contract to supply fire protection to owners of any individual properties. So Micah, this is one of the things that I heard being tossed around. Oh, well, the city can just contract with individuals. Well, it may do that, but under this new system, when a call is answered prior to July 1st, now and until July 1st, and for the last 40 years until July 1st of this year, all of that area was the same. The fire protection area and the 911 area was the same. The city no longer has the authority to answer that call and to respond. So there is not a computer system sophisticated enough that I have been made aware of, even though I've asked, is there a way? But let's say you and I, Micah, both live in the unincorporated area in question here. And I have a contract for fire service with the Sapulpa Fire Department, but you do not. There's no way a system that's out there after July 1st, when you and I both call 911 and it's routed to the Creek County Sheriff's Office, that they know that I have that subscription and that you don't. And that creates a lot of legal questions. Cities cannot provide any service to anyone without some sort of payment. Just like they can't run a water line to your house without putting a meter in. You can't connect to a city sewer without being charged on your water bill, your trash service, etc. And so while it does say this in state law, and I'm reading that so that people are aware, there's no way to discern which people have contracts with the city and which people don't. But there are provisions within state law that say you can contract for an entire area that would service everyone in that area the same, rather than doing it on an individual basis. That comes from the Title 19, Section 351. Title 19 of Oklahoma law is for county governments. And 351.1 is the agreements for fire protection services by municipalities, the charges therein. It reads, and I quote, the Board of County Commissioners of each county may enter into agreements with any municipality for the furnishing of fire protection and emergency services, including but not limited to medical attention for all persons and properties in areas outside the corporate limits of such municipality, and to pay for such services at a reasonable amount on a per-run basis, or such other equitable basis as may be agreed upon, and to pay for such services from funds from the county general fund or the county highway fund. It goes on to say, the Board of County Commissioners shall also have the authority to collect charges for such services performed by a municipality from any person to whom such services are provided. That's what the law says. Now, it's my opinion that an agreement needs to be in place, that the parties to such contract would be the City of Sapulpa and the Board of County Commissioners, and that they can negotiate what does it say, a reasonable amount on a per-run basis or other such equitable basis as may be agreed upon, whatever that looks like, and that the county has the authority to collect those charges to pay for that service. Such an agreement, in my opinion, would satisfy the issue at hand here. It would mean no disruption to fire service to the 20,000 some residents who are inside the fire run area today, but in the unincorporated areas surrounding the city of Sapulpa. And that's really what I'm employing my fellow elected to do. Is, there are a lot of burning questions out there of why wasn't this done this way? What can't the city do? Can't they collect on their own now? A lot of those questions that need answered. But the reality is, state law speaks clearly to the need for contracts for these services by municipalities outside of their corporate limits. And I contend that that's what we should do, is endeavor to follow the law. Let's not disrupt the public safety that our citizens are currently enjoying. And let's do it in a way that is contractual, that is legal and lawful, so that we're doing what's in the best interest of the people that we serve. So to that, I know that Sherman had asked, where can I get a copy of the map? I will forward that to Micah Sherman so that he has those. He can post it on his Facebook page, or if you drop maybe an email, Sherman, I think you and I are connected on social media. You want to shoot me a message, I can with an email address, I can forward you those maps as well so that you have them. But Micah, with that, that's kind of where we are. I would say if such an agreement is not reached, I think that this would have some very negative impacts on the folks affected in the unincorporated areas. I do want the people to know that I have reached out to the Attorney General's office for some guidance as we sort through this, to give their interpretation of the law of what people can and cannot do. I had a great meeting with the Director of Fire Protection Service from the Oklahoma Insurance Department this week. She is putting together a one-page kind of bullet points of what could happen. I'm not trying to instill fear in anyone, but if the folks in these unincorporated areas, if there are avenues being explored to have another fire department respond to these areas, then we have an issue of proximity to fire stations. Lois Spinn is the lady I spoke to at the Oklahoma Insurance Department. It is her belief that if a property is more than 5 road miles away from the fire station that's to service them, that could have some severe negative impacts on someone's homeowner insurance, up to and including possible cancellation. And like if you're like me, and you mortgage your home and it's escrowed, you pay your taxes and your insurance as part of your monthly payment to your mortgage holder. What changes does that have on someone's mortgage? I think these are the things that people need to know that hang in the balance. Again, I want to be hopeful and I want to be positive about this, and that there are avenues within the law to enter into agreements that would mean no disruption to service, no disruption to someone's mortgage or homeowner's insurance, and that is what I'm employing my fellow elected to do. But with that, I will answer any questions you may have, or we can go where we need to go.
Okay, great. We haven't had anybody except Sherman submit questions in the chat yet. So if you're watching now and you have questions, need us to maybe clarify on something, be sure to go ahead and put that in now, and I'll relay that over to Mark. But Mark, you and I kind of talked about this briefly on Monday evening, and I was hoping that maybe we could just kind of recap it, because I think it might just provide some clarity to the applicable situation as it applies to the people who own these properties outside of the corporate limits of Sapulpa, but are still within the fire run district. So my understanding of what's happening come July 1st is really the only thing that's changing, and feel free to clarify or correct me on this, is who answers the phone when somebody calls 911. And previously it would have been Sapulpa Police Department and their dispatch system, and now it's going to be the Creek County Sheriff and that system. And so the funding mechanism for our firefighters hadn't changed. So why would this seem to kind of maybe point that direction, as though, like, I mean, if the budget, I don't think it's changing for firefighters and things of that nature. So why would these homeowners possibly be losing fire protection?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. And that is, there are people that are saying this is about money, and it's not. Again, I'm going to go back to city code, and the fire department of the city is hereby authorized to answer calls for outside fire run services within the area enclosed. That's that PSAP boundary, which has changed. Right. When the location of service is within the E911 response area, in the event the call is answered, the owner of the location responded to shall be obligated to pay for the charges set forth in the master fee schedule. Well, that's invalid now. The city no longer has the authority to answer that call. Could they still run? That's where the legal question comes into. Can they run without some sort of contract in place to be paid for the service? And so far, the answers that I've been able to uncover are no. That agreement needs to be in place when the call is made. That brings up that question of why was this not done 40 years ago, and I don't know the answer to that. So it's really not about the current budget of any agency. The one standing to gain from this surely is the Creek County Sheriff's Office PSAP, who now has several more emergency service numbers coming, being answered by that PSAP. But this is about providing a city service to someone for free, and that's a big no-no. You can't do that. In fact, we've had county commissioners recently be charged with crime. Some have gone to prison when they use county resources for purposes that aren't public or a way to be paid for that. Paving a road that isn't on the county inventory, giving that service and that manpower and that equipment to someone with no means of being paid. It's illegal to do that. And so that is the sticky situation that I think the city finds itself in, is they need to have some sort of contractual agreement in place that allows them to operate outside of their corporate limits. And again, that goes back to there's not a system in place when a 911 call is answered to know what individual property owner has such an agreement and which one does not. So that's why in my opinion, the state law reads the way that it does. It says you can contract for an area, and then the county has the authority to collect for those charges, so that any call that comes inside that area, in the interest of public safety, that there's a contract in place so that there is some payment for that service, so that on the back end, if someone has paid or hasn't paid, there is recourse to collect that payment, and then it settles that legal question of being able to provide that service outside of your territorial limits.
Okay, so I'm going to keep on that particular point for just a second, because there's never been an agreement like that in place up to this point, right? So,
correct.
I mean, does that technically mean the Sapulpa Fire Department has been answering calls to fires and things without possibly being paid for them up to this point?
I think that is a very, very distinct possibility, Micah. Yes.
Okay.
And again, I want to be clear. Whenever this was established, however long ago it was, 911 has not been around forever. I truly believe that those that made those decisions then did so with the people's best interest in mind. And it was probably some sort of handshake deal of here's what we'll do and this is how we'll do it. And mind you, some of these statutes that I read to you today have been last amended like 2003 maybe, but were put on the books late 70s, early 80s. So okay. These laws could have been put in place because situations such as the one we're experiencing now came about. And again, we probably should have followed the law back then and put these agreements in place. I can't speak to why that wasn't done, but then I go back to, knowing what we know now, we as the elected have an obligation to do what's right and to follow the law now, and that would be to establish such agreements.
Okay.
But that's a great question. It's a great question.
Thank you. So the other question I have, and I don't even know if this is one that you can answer particularly, but so like we said, the PSAP would be changing July 1st. Mm-hmm. If you're outside the corporate limits of Sapulpa, then Creek County Sheriff's going to answer the phone. And I mean, they still have the authority, do they not, to call the Sapulpa Fire Department, or at least relay that through that dispatch system? And Sapulpa Fire presumably would respond, or is that kind of the question here, is there needs to be a contract in place for that to happen?
So from now until July 1st, yes, if you're, again, within that orange region, which is in the current Sapulpa PSAP boundary and the current Sapulpa Fire Run boundary, your call will be answered at the Sapulpa PSAP, which is downtown at the police station, and Sapulpa Fire will respond to you. Assuming this is a fire emergency. After July 1, that call will be answered by the Creek County Sheriff's Office, who operate the county dispatch out of the sheriff's office. I don't know that there is a way that people could opt in to be routed to another one. That goes back to that Title 63 of the Emergency Telephone Act and part of that implementing of the plan. Further up in that section of law, it talks about that plan of transfer and how calls will be sent to the proper public safety agency to respond. And even that it is a pretty sophisticated, it even talks about a basic or a sophisticated system. But because of the action of the State 911 Management Authority in changing these boundaries effective July 1st, there is now an increase in volume that the Creek County Sheriff's Office and the County 911 PSAP should expect to see a huge increase in volume, because now they've suddenly got all of these new unique emergency service numbers that will be coming in. And that is part of that plan. Again, and it says this to the Section 2808, the Joint Power Written and Cooperative Agreements for Implementation of Plan. Micah, that's all part of that plan. Is okay. When that call comes in, do they have an agreement in place, say with Sapulpa Fire, so that they can transfer that call to Sapulpa Fire? And with such an agreement in place, then Sapulpa Fire can then respond to that call based on where it comes from. And that's all, this is where it kind of bifurcates, but there is some overlap between 911 and fire. The county is tasked with this new plan, with the new territories that it's going to cover and receive calls from, up to and including getting such agreements in place for fire departments that have been responding to calls outside city limits, which will no longer be able to do that. I think Bristow is very much in a similar situation. They have a large area that they are answering the calls for. That is also their fire protection run for this purpose. And here's the map. And guys, I will share it. I know a lot of you guys have asked for it. So the blue, the calls are currently going to Bristow today. After July 1, only that dark shaded portion, which is the corporate limits of Bristow, that's where they will only receive those calls. But someone down here may very well have a fire emergency. That call is now going to be answered by the Creek County Sheriff's Office at the jail somewhere up here, and they'll need to have, I'm assuming, again, I don't know as much about what agreements Bristow does or does not have, but if they're in the same boat as Sapulpa, the county would then need to have a similar type agreement in place with Bristow Fire, so that then they can turn around and dispatch Bristow Fire to that fire emergency. And that's what's come about. But this all resides in who's had the authority to answer that call. In this case, the Sapulpa PSAP, they answer the call. They can immediately dispatch Sapulpa Fire. But come July 1, they're not going to be able to answer a call, say, out by Sahoma Lake or out off of Lone Star Road. That call is going to be routed to the county's PSAP. And then if it is a fire emergency, that constituent today is in the response area of Sapulpa Fire. But without such an agreement after July 1st, I don't know who responds, and that's the concern. That's a public safety concern. I've seen some plans that maybe Kiefer would respond to that area. It's my understanding there would need to be some sort of agreement with Kiefer to run there, and then you get into the road mile issue. Is that more than 5 miles away from the Kiefer Fire Department? And if so, even if Kiefer responds to that call, does that have an impact on that homeowner's insurance policy because they are located outside of that 5 road mile area? That's where things get really kind of convoluted and sticky. And I just go back to, the law prescribes the ability for municipalities and counties to enter into contracts specifically for this service in a way so that these municipal fire departments can be paid. And that's what's going to not disrupt anyone's service that they're enjoying today. And that, to me, is the best interest for public safety.
Okay, we do have some questions coming in. I'm going to kind of go through these one at a time. So I'll start with the one here from Annie Lawson Erickson asking, does this apply to people who currently pay the $5 bill? I think that what she's actually referring to is the $5 water bill that comes to the rural county. Well, I guess it would be like your stormwater fee or something that comes through city water. Is that right?
Yeah, so a $5 bill, I'm not sure what that is. So Annie, if you could give some clarity on what the $5 bill is, perhaps I could respond. I do know that there are some property owners in the unincorporated area. Again, the master fee schedule that I referenced when reading portions of the city code for $200 a year for just a residential property in the unincorporated area in question. That comes out to $16.66 a month, roughly. I know some people will pay just $200 flat. They're covered for the year. Other people have requested to get like a $16.66 monthly bill to pay that. But if there is no agreement with Sapulpa Fire, it's my understanding that all of those individual agreements would be voided as well. But if we could get some clarity on what the $5 bill is, like perhaps I could answer that question a little better.
Okay, I think that she's just referring to a fee that everybody pays in their water bill, and I know that there's at least within some of the rural county water districts as well, there's a fee that's paid for that. Okay, here's the additional explanation from Annie. Bill for police, fire, sewer. Not exactly sure how much. I think we're talking about the same thing.
So it could be. So if you're in the city limits, I think that's what we all get. If you're in the city limits, you're not going to be disrupted at all. Like that's part of you being a citizen of the city of Sapulpa. That is a service that the city provides you. This will not disrupt your service at all. This is more when speaking to fire protection service. This is the 20-some thousand people that live outside of city limits, but are within currently the fire run district of Sapulpa.
Okay.
Yeah, I will let you. You're the moderator. I do see some other questions coming in. That I think
Yeah. So just going, Janet asked us, what did the agreement look like? And I think that's the main point of discussion here is that the agreement actually doesn't exist yet. So I know that City Attorney David Widows has sent in like a memorandum of understanding with a draft agreement, but to my knowledge, the county has not come to the table on that yet. At least it hadn't last time I checked, but Mark, correct me if I'm wrong there.
So yes, I have seen some email exchanges there where some folks from the county have said that they're not interested in negotiating. But I want to be fair. I've spoken to all three county commissioners, some more briefly than others. But as recent as this week, I had a great conversation with one of the county commissioners who feels like the Board of County Commissioners could easily negotiate something that would satisfy these sections of state law and not disrupt service. So I know that there are some that are interested in negotiation. I certainly hope that others will join in that cause. But it just takes two out of the three. Two of the three county commissioners to agree. But to Janet's question, Janet, I'm just going to look at, again, contracts respecting fire protection in Title 11 that is for cities and towns. As it says, contracts shall expressly stipulate terms and conditions. And then it talks about in the county portion, it could be at a reasonable amount on a per run basis or other such equitable basis. That's what can be negotiated by the two entities that enter into that contract. And that's what I'm hoping that they do. Is what is something at a reasonable price so that the city can satisfy the law and that it's got a way of getting paid for providing that service outside of its territorial limits, but also from the county's perspective too, that it knows that it has fire protection service for its citizens as well. And that leads into, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the chat, Micah, but that agreement can look like a lot of things. That is to be negotiated by the Board of County Commissioners in the city of Sapulpa.
Okay. We're starting to get some good feedback here. Thank you guys for submitting your questions and stuff. We appreciate that you're doing that. Sherman asks, is there going to be a meeting to discuss this with the citizens of Sapulpa? I mean, I think I'll take the lead on that one, just saying that they've already met about this a few times. I do want to make it clear that it's not as though this is really something that could not happen. I mean, the authority has come down from the 911 Management Authority. And so come July 1st, it is going to happen. It's not like a voter issue. It's not anything like that. What we're talking about now is how to deal with the repercussions of that from the 911 Management Authority.
Yeah. Further, Micah, I would say I do think July 1 is a deadline that these PSAP boundaries will change and who answers calls will change. However, with the agreements in place that I've talked about, citing the state law, citing city code, if such an agreement can be reached, there would be no disruption. But whether or not to discuss this with the citizens of Sapulpa, that's part of what I'm trying to do here, is just make people aware. But you as citizens, if you live in the city limits, you certainly have a city councilor that represents you. But everybody in this region is represented by a county commissioner as well. And that at the state level, I'm the state representative. If you go north of 91st Street, that is technically not my house district, but the vast majority of the people are people that I represent. That's what I'm trying to make people aware of what's going on. But reach out to the people that represent you. If you've got an opinion about this, they are those who are charged with the authority to enter into such agreements. I know Tammy had mentioned something about response times. I would certainly think a fire department that is 2 miles away could get there quicker than one that is 8 miles away. So yes, I think that, if it's not the city, it's not Sapulpa Fire Department that's responding to these calls, that's part of that negative impact. It could mean a delayed response time for what you're being able to enjoy today. So if you have some concerns about that, or you have some opinions about that, I certainly, we are elected people. We serve you as the public. We serve you, the citizen. So let us know how you feel and what we might be able to do for you. Okay.
Since you mentioned Tammy, we'll bring up the next question that she had. She mentioned this fee that you talked about earlier, the $16.66 per month. Will this mean that I will no longer be covered?
Without an agreement in place, I do believe it would mean that you're no longer covered. Again, the city does have the ability in its code and law to contract with individuals, but then it becomes an issue, like a database issue. Come July 1, right now, if the phone call comes in, it comes in because you are in that geo-fenced area. You are in that area. And that's where, with the authority to answer the call, which the city has right now, they can respond to you. And whether you pay the $16.66 a month or not, they can bill you for that service. Come July 1, when they no longer have the authority to answer that call, there's no way to discern what individual has a contract and what individual does not. And then it leaves the liability of the city as if they respond to something. And to be clear, the city fire department wants to respond. They want to respond. They want to keep doing what they're doing. They don't want to leave anybody high and dry. But there is, again, the legal ramifications of if the city were to respond to a property where there is no agreement in place and they provide that service, did they just break the law? There's a good chance that they did. And could a citizen that lives inside the corporate limits bring action against the city for providing a service to someone who hasn't paid for it when that is a citizen who is paying for that service? I think so. And that, again, I think that is why the law is written the way that it is, to allow for a broader agreement for certain areas to provide fire protection, so that you don't have to sit there and say, well, Micah, hold on a second. Let's pull up a database. Let's call the city to see if you've paid the $16.66 a month. This is all delayed response time to you, Micah, to see, if you did or if you didn't. Because if you did, we can transfer you to Sapulpa Fire Department. But if you didn't, well, sorry, no one can respond. That's not in the interest of public safety. Again, that's why I implore my fellow elected to look at these sections of law, to sit down and negotiate, come to an agreeable term, get an agreement and a contract in place so that we don't disrupt anybody's service.
Okay. And then I think I'll make this the last question here. Janet kind of pointedly asked, basically condensing the last 45 minutes into a single sentence here. What did the city want and why did the county feel like it's not necessary? And she's referring to that the county had not yet come to meet with the city about this draft agreement. And I don't know if there's a way that you can kind of reiterate and condense that down.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, Janet. And I want to be careful. I respect that the city council that serves the city of Sapulpa was elected just like I was. And our county commissioners were also elected by the people like I was. And I cannot speak for them, any of them directly, and nor would I do that. I would expect that same courtesy from them in return. But I will say I've talked extensively to Chief Vickery and some of the guys there at the Sapulpa Fire Department, and I feel quite comfortable speaking for them in regard to what the city wants. They want to respond. They want to take care of people. They want, when the phone rings, they want to jump on that bus, they want to roll out, and they want to go take care of people. They want to continue to do that. I think everybody wants to do what's in the best interest of public safety and in the best interest of the people that they serve. But as to why or why not certain negotiations have yet to take place, I can't speak to that. That's not a question for me to answer. I will just go back to, as someone who is also elected by these same people, we have a decision before us. I think continuing service through a contract with the Sapulpa Fire Department is what's best going to serve these 20,000 people in the unincorporated area. These are services that they have enjoyed and been able to take advantage of for the last several decades. State law provides provisions for us to do that. I implore everybody to get to the table and please negotiate a contract so that we don't disrupt any of this service to anyone.
Okay. All right, guys, this is Mark Lawson here, State Representative Mark Lawson, talking about the changes coming to the 911 boundaries for pretty much all of Creek County. So, Mark, thank you again for coming on and being a part of this and having this discussion. We appreciate it very much. And thank you for taking the time to answer all the questions.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Micah, again, thank you. Again, this is important. This is something that people need to know about. But again, I want to end. There is hope. There's a way to get this all settled and agreed upon and cause no disruption for anyone. But that takes us as the elected to do what's in your best interest, and that's negotiate a contract and get one in place. So, Micah, thank you so much. For the folks in the chat, thank you. I will get Micah a lot of the information that I shared with you here today so that you can take a peek at it yourself. And again, if you have any concerns, we serve you. Reach out to your city councilor, reach out to your county commissioner, reach out to me. Let us know how you feel, what we might be able to do for you, and what position we need to take on your behalf.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks again, Mark. We'll talk again soon.
You bet. Have a good weekend, Micah. We'll see you at the beer garden tomorrow.
Possibly. My son's birthday party is at the same time, so I'll have to kind of make
friendly beer garden.
Yeah.
I'm teasing. Micah, thanks again. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, guys. All right. Okay, well, that was an extra long segment there. So thanks to all of you who participated in that. I just want you to know we're here for you. We're here to get your questions answered. And so we're going to continue to do that just as much as we can. Just a little bit of a heads up for you guys. So I do have scheduled to have Under Sheriff Joe Thompson on the show on Monday to talk about the other side of this. So basically, we're going to talk about why the Creek County Sheriff asked to make these changes. What you can expect at the county level, and maybe a little bit of what the county side of this would be as it pertains to the agreements and what the changes are going to be happening come July 1st. So bottom line is be sure to tune into the show on Monday. We're going to talk with the sheriff, Under Sheriff Joe Thompson, about that as we work towards this July 1st deadline. So, all right, returning to the normal scheduled programming here, we're going to kick it over to Jonathan for a scripture of the day, and then I will be back right after that. Bye-bye.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, it's Free Coffee Friday. I got my coffee right here. Hey, your scripture for today is 2 Corinthians 12:9, and it says, my grace is efficient for you, and my power finds its full expression in your time of weakness. Sometimes we go through life when we're feeling weak. We want to quit. We want to give in. We want to throw in the towel. This is too hard. I can't do it. I messed up here. I messed up there. Hey, listen, at that point, God's grace comes in for your life like a flood. It gives you the power you need not to quit, not to give in, not to think those thoughts. Why? Because the grace of God doesn't quit. It doesn't back away. It gives you the power you need to keep going, to keep pushing forward, to get the victory that God's promised in your life. Don't give in today. God's grace is everything you need, and if you ask for it, He'll give it to you. Have a blessed day. I'm Jonathan, and I'm out.
All right. Thanks for that, Jonathan. And this is the part of the show where I thank all of you who support us with your $4.99 subscription to the Sapulpa Times. You help make this show possible and all the other content that we deliver online and across our social media channels and through email. We've got the QR code there. If you're not a subscriber, I ideally wish that you would consider supporting us with a donation, or not a donation, a subscription. And then also we did launch our merch swag shop, whatever you want to call it, where we got T-shirts and things like that available. Coffee mugs, for sure. You get your Sapulpa Times coffee mug. And we do have hats coming. So people have been asking, can I get hats? I promise you they are on the way. I think they're going to be a little bit later than what I was expecting because of all of the stuff that we had come down here, but they are coming. So we're going to get those to you just as soon as we can. And then we've got plans for even more things a little later down the line. So be sure to check that out. That's at sapulpatime.com. Click the shop link to go visit the store. And if you get a shirt, send me a selfie or something in your new Sapulpa Time swag. I want to see you guys wearing your merch out there. It's awesome. So, okay, guys, just a reminder, don't forget to tune in on Monday to meet with, we're going to talk with Joe Thompson about the Creek County Sheriff's side of this 911 change to the PSAP boundary that's happening on July 1st. So be sure to tune in there. We will also be working to get all the resources and things that Mark was talking about today out today at sapulpatime.com. We'll have the map available, and we'll have basically a rundown of what Mark was talking about today, and then we will follow up with more to that story on Monday, okay? Guys, that is it for me today. I hope you have a great weekend. We got a lot of stuff going on. Be sure to come out and enjoy all the great stuff happening in Sapulpa. Thanks for tuning in to the Time Loop, and I will see you guys again on Monday, where we talk about all things happening in the town that we love. See you.